And there he is, lying in the shade near his kill, looking rather content with that very cute pink nose of his. So welcome to the Sabi Sands. Isn't this incredible? We're jumping from the Masai Mara and the Great Migration. Sorry, I've got my sunglasses on my head there. From the Great Migration, crossing the Mara River to the middle of South Africa in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, where we're sitting with possibly one of the most fascinating young leopards, who's got probably the most unique leopard story I've ever come across in my time in the bush, the young Sindile. Now, if we do have any new viewers out there, this is live. We're looking at this young male leopard live, and you might notice looks like he's got a bump on his noggin. That is a tracking collar. This leopard, as I said, has had one of the most interesting stories. He was born to a female leopard who holds territory just to the west of us. Her name is Shadow, and she's historically not a very good mother. And what happened is, while he was left alone, while she was out hunting, and fortunately a couple of dogs made their way into the reserve from outside, and he caught one of them. And we were there when it happened. We saw it happen, and it was quite a shock. And we then chased him out of the tree to get him away from that dog. The dog was destroyed, and it turned out to be positive for rabies. So there was a lot of discussion. Now, traditionally, if a wild predator has bitten an animal that has tested positive for rabies, it is destroyed on sight, because it is a massive risk to the rest of the animals out there. So, for the first time that I've ever heard of, he was darted, taken into quarantine, where he was given anti-rabies injections, and he was out of the bush for about 8 months, and at a very important time in a young leopard's life, when he was about a year old. And then he was re-released back into the Sabi Sands, and that was quite a while ago, and he's been doing really well. He's picked up another nickname, which is the Wanderer, which is not uncommon for a male leopard of his age. He's probably close on 2 years old now, and he now basically flits between different male leopard territories, trying to avoid confrontations, but he's been hunting well. A lot of people were very worried that he wasn't going to know how to hunt when he came out of quarantine. Now, a very simple thing with all the big cats, even if they've been hand-reared by humans, all you need to do is let them go in the bush, and if they get hungry, they remember how to hunt. Those are instinctive things that are so ingrained in these predators that it is not something that needs to be taught. But this is the most amazing story. And of course, many of our regular Safari Live viewers really love this leopard. And Valeria says, I really love this Sindile, such a special boy. So quite aptly, his name Sindile means the survivor. And he has lived up to that name over and over again. Now, if you want to ask any questions about young Sindile, and if I might have missed a bit of his history or something you'd like to know a little bit more in depth, please feel free to send me an email to questions@WildEarthTV or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. So you can't see it at the moment, but behind me, he's got an adult female impala kill, so he's sitting pretty, so to speak, at the moment. Nice full belly. And there we go, you can see the tracking collar a bit more clearly now. And it might look a little bit uncomfortable, but as you can see, it's not hampering him. He managed to catch a big impala. Oh, no, half a yawn. Was a big yawn coming? There it comes. Oh, beautiful. Look at those canines. But while we sit here with the very contented-looking young Sindile, let's go say good afternoon to Steph. So we can just see I'm almost hoping that a basileer or tawny eagle arrives so we can see him sprint up the tree to defend his kill. But there he is. He's still lying in the only patch of shade. We are happily sitting in a bit further of the same tree's shade, and there's not much shade out in this area where we are at the moment, and it is nice and warm today. Probably close on 90 degrees Fahrenheit. George, you are 100% correct. George was wondering, isn't Sindile the only cub of shadows to survive to adulthood? George, you are spot on. We don't know what's happening with her current cub at the moment. It hasn't been seen in a while. Hopefully, it's going to be the second, because I thought she was an absolutely stunning young leopard. But only time will tell whether that other cub of Shadow's has made it to adulthood. Now, Shadow is quite famous for doing weird things when she's got cubs, unlike her mother, Karula, who is possibly one of the best mother leopards I've ever come across in my time in the bush. Shadow seems to be the opposite. I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but I think she's lost a lot of her cubs because she doesn't hoist kills very often. It could be because she's such a small leopard, but her mom is also a small leopard, so that those cubs are often encountered by hyenas on the ground, and they're not quick enough sometimes to get away. And while she's got cubs, she starts mating and doing other strange things. As I said, Shadow is an interesting one. You never know quite what you're going to get. But I'm very happy he has made it to adulthood. So a leopard cub up to about a year old has a mortality of about 70%. So it's incredible. So only 3 in 10 leopard cubs born generally make it to adulthood. Now, a lot of people would assume hyena and lions are the biggest killers of leopard cubs. It is not, however. It is male leopards, pretty much male leopards very similar to him, who are on the move, don't have a set territory yet. They are big killers of young leopards. So he is very much a potential threat. If Shadow hasn't lost that other cub, he is a huge threat to that cub. Now, we're right on the periphery of Shadow's territory. We have actually seen her in this area quite a few times. The first time I ever saw her live and on foot was probably 50 meters from here. And he's enjoying that shade at the moment, snoozing away. Now, of course, we speak a lot in generalizations when we talk about what kills leopards, what happens. Of course, we can only really say for sure about the ones we know. And I'm 100% certain that, I've seen in spending time with animals, they have the ability to surprise you and do something completely unexpected at any time. Now, Jennifer says, I think he's dreaming. Well, I'm not so sure, Jennifer. I haven't seen any twitchy mouth or twitchy paws. And I'm watching his ears quite carefully, and he's still listening around. So there's a couple... Well, we're going to sit here, and as you can see, young Sindile isn't going anywhere, but Steph's got some pachyderms on the move. Well, we're hoping he's going to be feeding in a tree, and that's why we're waiting patiently next to him. He hasn't moved a muscle. He's still snoozing under a big, well, not a big, it's actually a very small torchwood or greenthorn, but it is some of the only available shade in this area. There's not a lot of shade in this area, as you can see. And even the kill is in a tree. He probably wouldn't be his first choice, but I think he might have decided it was safer to get it up and out of the way of any potential other predators. So not a great place to feed, especially on a hot day like today. And it certainly feels like summer might be on the way. Very, very clever question from Romy in Ohio. And that is, if I saw a leopard stalking a domestic dog, would we intervene? And of course, we don't normally intervene. I most certainly would intervene in that case. We definitely don't want another Sindile scenario. I would definitely I would chase the leopard. I'd shout at him, say, "Stop it, you're a naughty boy," but in possibly a bit more in an aggressive voice. And I would get hold of the Sabi Sands so they can come deal with the domestic dog. Now, a lot of you might think that is quite harsh, because when I say deal with the domestic dog, I mean move it to another plane of existence. Now, very interesting when it comes to rabies, and I've read up a lot on rabies because of what happened to Sindile, and also because at my reserve at home we lost our whole pack of wild dogs to rabies last year. At the same time that Sindile got rabies, we also had to destroy almost a lot of our black-backed jackal and side-striped jackal, because they are also great vectors for rabies. So I did do a lot of reading. Now, it turns out that the further from the boundary of the parks, so the edge of the park that is up against the community land, the villages, the further from that point that you find a domestic dog, the higher the probability of rabies. Now, this is very interesting, and it's actually only very recently published data. Actually, I'm not even sure if it is published, but I got to read it. We're not going to say how. But what it turns out, that it seems like before all the symptoms of rabies, foaming at the mouth, super aggression in domestic animals, super... the best way to describe it is domestic animals become wild and wild animals become tame under rabies, and then foaming at the mouth, hydrophobia. Those are all quite late signs of rabies. And one of the first ones, and this is all from this new information, it's actually all from the Sabi Sands, this data. And so it turns out that probably the first sign of rabies in an animal is disorientation. So that dog doesn't know where home is. So it keeps going further and further away from home. So generally, if we're going to find any domestic dog here, there's a very high likelihood of it having rabies. So unfortunately, that poses a huge threat, not only to wonderful leopards like Sindile, but to the lions, the hyenas, the jackals, the mongoose, and even the antelope. Less likely, but still a possibility. And those animals need to be destroyed immediately. Now, you have to be very careful when you destroy a dog or any animal that's suspected of having rabies. That rabies is mostly in the brain and in the saliva. So if you do destroy it, you have to make sure you don't compromise any of those areas. They don't open them up. And the dog that Sindile actually caught, I bagged. So you'll be very careful. Gloves, 2 plastic bags, put it in the bag, and it's immediately sent off to Onderstepoort, which is the sort of head veterinary area in South Africa, attached to the University of Pretoria. And it is tested, and being an area where we have a country of a lot of rural areas and game reserves and farms, and something like rabies and a rabies outbreak is a very big, dangerous thing out here. So that thing, within 48 hours, you generally got a result from Onderstepoort, whether that is positive or not. So it is a very interesting thing. Now, Jamie, who's a new viewer, a big welcome to you, Jamie. And so nice to have you with the beautiful Sindile, who is hunting away. So Jamie would like to know, is rabies common here? It goes through phases. It's like a lot of diseases out in the wild. Sometimes there could be certain populations of animals that are vectors for it, so they can carry without being affected. And in southern Africa, the creatures that are known vectors for rabies are bats. So you've always got to be very careful when handling bats, mongoose, and jackals. And domestic dogs to a degree. Some domestic dogs are able to carry rabies without actually being positive, but as soon as they bite something or attack something, they can pass on the rabies virus. Now, the rabies virus is a very scary thing, and there's almost, if you go beyond a certain point, there is no cure. And if you read some of the old accounts of South Africa, or Africa in general, but let's just finish the story quickly. So there's an account of two hunters and explorers, and they were best friends, and one best friend got bitten by a rabid animal, and this was by a rabid jackal, actually, and this was before there was any medicine that could deal with this. And his friend, the guy who got bitten, chained himself to their ox wagon and asked his best friend to do the deed when he started showing the sort of madness, the rabies madness, the foaming at the mouth, the hydrophobia. So it's a very scary thing, rabies. I actually keep 2 rabies vaccinations in my fridge at all time. And when we had that rabies scares last year, I immediately got Jamie and myself shot up with rabies, because we do spend a lot of time on foot here and at the other reserve. But anyway, enough of this morbid talk. Let's go to Steph with the. Now, isn't this incredible? I just did a little bit of maths while you guys were with James in the Masai Mara. Now, you have just leapt instantaneously from a live safari in Kenya that is exactly 2,623 kilometers from where we are sitting here in the Sabi Sands. It actually literally blows my mind. Now, I'm terrible at maths, but I'll try to work that out in miles. But he is sleeping, but to get him going up the tree, it's going to be a patience game. And I think it's worthwhile spending time with him. We don't often see him these days, so Dave and I have made the decision that we're in it for the long haul with young Sindile today. And there we go. I've done it, my magic app. 1,654 miles. That's where James is from Steph and myself. Laura is wondering, do we recognize Sindile without his collar on? I think we would, Laura. We have spent a lot of time with him when he was younger, and he has a very distinct 3-3 spot pattern, if my memory is correct. Should be 3-3. Well, if he looks this way, I'll get a picture and we can double check. I'm pretty certain it was 3-3. So yeah, 3-3. Oh, my memory is quite good. So I think I would recognize him. He has got a bit darker as he's got a bit older. Chris Rogue is wondering where we are. We are in the block between Aubrey's Road and Sandy Patch, very close to Vuyatela access. Now, Herbie actually tracked him from Arathusa all the way here. So I gave Herbie a big hug after drive to say thank you for finding him for us. There he is, look at that. He is going to be a magnificent specimen when he's older. But now from a terrestrial predator to an avian predator. So I'm sure many of our long-time Safari Live viewers have got some favorite stories about Sindile, and all of us presenters do, I know that for a fact. So I think what we'll do is I'll share a few of my favorite Sindile stories with you. Now, he was always great fun to track on foot. Now, especially when Shadow used to leave him for those very long periods of time. And I think he almost saw us as his company, his fun for the day as we would arrive to come look for him. And I think he's followed every single one of us back to the car on foot. He's done it to Jamie, he's done it to James, he's done it to me. And we were lucky enough to spend huge amounts of time with him when Shadow abandoned him that first time. And he was almost always around the end of Philemon's cut line. And I think one of my definite favorites was we had, who was it now? A director, whose name was Tara, and she came out on the back of the vehicle with us, and we do let final control out of the vehicle occasionally. Out onto the vehicles occasionally. And I said, well, Tara, do you want to come walk? Let's see if we can find him on foot. And off we went into the bush. And we didn't actually find him that time, but Tara did get covered in pepper ticks, and she vowed never to go walking again. Of course, that didn't last too long. The lure of seeing a big cat on foot was too much. And I think one of the funniest ones I've ever had with him was in that same area, and there were massive termite mounds around, and I was just walking around, going up to the top of the termite mound, seeing if I could see him, coming down, going to the next termite mound, and then I looked behind me, and he was doing the same thing. He was literally going up the termite mound I'd just been up, smelling where I'd been, and then following me down to the next termite mound. And possibly one of the most special sightings that I've had with him. Unfortunately, we weren't able to share on air with you, and due to the nature of the other animal in the sighting. But I've had him when he was about 6 months old, stalking 2 male rhino for about an hour, sneaking up to them, getting within a meter of them, showing a bit of that playful side. Leopard cubs are so wonderful at. Now, if you'd like to share any Sindile stories, your favorite sighting with him, let me know by using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or use the email address questions@WildEarthTV. What was your favorite Sindile sighting? Or, of course, we all know the big story, but let's focus more on the happier times before he became one of the most well-traveled leopards. Debbie Vancouver says her favorite Sindile story was when he stalked Jamie, and that day he stalked Jamie from about 100 meters from the car. He followed her all the way back to the vehicle, so all she had to do was jump into the driver's seat and go live with him lying about this distance away. As I said, Dave and I have chosen to spend our afternoon with this young male, and I am hoping he climbs the tree at some point. And it is so special. We haven't seen him or had good sightings of him for so long, and I definitely think, wow, we've got him, and we should maximize our time with him. Even if he is a sleepy catty. Now, Clarissa's wondering why those tracking collars have to be so big. Now, it's so the batteries, it's not actually any of the other stuff, it's the batteries that keep sending that signal. And it's not as constraining and uncomfortable as you would think. I mean, he doesn't look like he's an uncomfortable leopard at the moment. And of course, he's catching adult impala or sub-adult impala, so it's obviously not affecting his hunting powers. And unfortunately, he had to get this collar due to the nature that he went into quarantine, and they need to keep a track on him to see what happens. From a scientific point of view, it's really, really interesting. And there's not much data on these type of situations because this is a unique situation. Now, of course, a lot of people would ask about putting tracking chips in him. And unfortunately, those tracking chips have actually been shown to cause cancerous growths, and also their signal is not very good and it's very intermittent, and it's obviously a much more invasive operation because they actually have to cut and put that chip under his skin and then cut and remove that chip from under his skin as well. So this collar that has a timing device and that pressure sensor is a far better way of doing it. Jenny says her favorite Sindile moment was when there were hyenas around and he leapt into a tiny tree. Now, he did do that quite a few times, and very amusing to watch. Well, Anne in Durban, I probably agree with you. It wasn't a happy scene, but definitely an incredibly fascinating scene. That moment when we first saw Sindile and Shadow together. I love how he keeps looking up, checking if there are any battaliers or vultures about. You can see he's hot, so he sits up from time to time. Beautiful boy. Now, as I say, we're going to play the patience game with young Sindile. While we do that, Steph has arrived at what is left of the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. So the patience game has paid off. He just pounced up the tree, but he's looking a bit uncomfortable at the moment. I thought he might come down, but he might just be repositioning to get into a better spot to feed. And as I said, it's not the best tree, but I think it was the closest and most convenient tree. Lacks shade, and I think a lioness would be able to climb that tree to get to that carcass if they happen to come up across it. We don't know. Maybe there were hyena around when he first caught it, or he was dragging it, so he had to make a quick decision, put it in the tree, keep it away from the hyenas. It looks like he's about to settle down and feed. Can't imagine that's the most comfortable tree to lie in. Now, Jason's favorite Sindile story is when he failed dismally to catch a gerbil for over an hour, and he did give us much joy with failed hunts, jumping into quarry trees to try and catch tiny rattling testiculars, and he was a very entertaining young male leopard. Not to say he isn't still entertaining, but he is a bit older, so not quite as playful as he was when we first really got to know him. Yeah, the bones crunch there. Trying to move it into a more comfortable position. Now, initially I thought it was a female impala, but I can now see horns, so it's a yearling male impala, one of the babies that would have been born in between November and January last year. Okay, what are they going to do, since he's now seemed to be settled in that feeding area? Now, Vic is wondering if we ever show how the leopard kills the animal. Well, Vic, we are live, so if we happen to be there while they're hunting, yes, we will show the hunt and how the animal is killed. He killed this before we found him, so probably between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock this morning, judging by how much had been fed on by the time we first arrived a couple of hours ago. So, Vic, yes, if we're lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, we will show how the leopards hunt and kill animals. Okay, he looks quite settled there, so I'm going to try and move around to the other side, see if we can get a different view. It's just wonderful. I told you, playing the patience game, sitting and waiting, we were going to get some spectacular visuals of him up in a tree. So the sun is setting directly behind them, so it could be a bit harsh. I'm just going to try a few spots to see where we get the best view from. It's going to be around here somewhere. What do you think, Dave? I think that's the spot. Put Dave in the trees, but that's okay. He'll survive. Hey, mister. Is that yummy? Yummy impala. So that clickety-click is just me getting a snapshot of his beautiful face. Now, I think as the light dips lower and lower, this is going to turn into a particularly spectacular sighting. Who knows, well, we're going to get lucky enough to get the leopard silhouetted against the blood-red sunset. Just trying to move it into a more comfortable position again. He's got his head right inside the rib cage. Now, you probably find he's already eaten the high nutrient organs like the heart, the liver, kidneys. He's now having himself some ribs. Hi, Laurie. Laurie would like to know, why is it that lions are a social cat and stay together and leopards don't? Well, they've evolved into different evolutionary niches, Laurie. Lions being bigger and taking down bigger prey species like buffalo, hippo, and even occasionally elephant. It helps to be a social animal and hunt cooperatively, whereas leopards rely on camouflage and stealth, and they've evolved to be a solitary, I wanted to say sneaky, that's probably not the right word. What am I looking at? What's the word I'm looking for here, Dave? A solitary and stealthy predator. So if there were more of them, the camouflage wouldn't be as relevant, and they are ambush predators, and they generally they have to get to within about 5 meters before they go into full charge mode to grab something. So if there were a lot of you, it wouldn't work. So it's just different evolutionary designs of the big cats. Now, Sandy in sunny Florida would like to know, is there a chance that tree will fall over? I don't think so, Sandy. It's quite a sturdy tree. It is a red bush willow, and per cubic centimeter, it is one of the hardest trees, or the wood is one of the hardest woods in the African bush. And it's so hard and so strong, it's so heavy that if you had to put a log into water, it would sink. Now, you can just make out, where's my hand, Dave? Am I in the wrong place? There we go. You can just see that spike there. There we go. You can see the horns of that young male impala. Now, impala of that age are often referred to as pen kops or pen heads, because their horns are about the same size as a very big pen. Now, that's in Afrikaans, one of the local languages here in South Africa. Now, Clarissa in Arlington is saying that she heard that the leopards don't eat the stomach of their prey. That is not completely true, Clarissa. So they don't eat the stomach contents. Now, if you're a leopard, you eat protein and meat, and the stomach contents of any of a leopard's prey is going to be undigested grass. They will eat the stomach lining, however. So that is what we would call the stomach. So the same thing haggis is made out of, or offal. That people eat, and a leopard would definitely not waste that meal. So they do eat the stomach lining, Clarissa. So while we sit here with young Sindile, see what he gets up to next. Maybe he'll come down the tree right next to us. And while we wait, let's go see what Steph's doing. I'm not even sure where he is at the moment. So he nearly dropped the impala out of the tree. So we're just actually waiting here. I thought he might come down the tree right towards us. So I'm standing by. And we're going to stay here for a little bit. I know it's not the best visual, but if he comes down the tree, he's going to come down like this right towards us. And that will be an absolutely spectacular sight. So that's why I'm sitting exactly where I'm sitting at this very moment in time. Now, often a lot of this stuff is about, I suppose, educated guessing. When he's going to come down on the tree, where's the best spot to sit. But see, he stopped feeding and he started cleaning. And it's not a very comfortable tree. So that's why I'm hoping, that's why I'm sitting here where we don't have the best view, that I'm hoping he's going to come down the branch right at us. And that would be a really special sight. Sorry, guys. Oof, sorry. The man flu strikes again. So he's still preening, cleaning. So I'm hedging my bets, and I think I'm right. I think in the next 2 or 3 minutes he's going to come down the tree directly at us. So it is worthwhile having a slightly compromised view for the next couple of minutes. What do you think, Dave?
We got a chance.
We got a chance. I think we got a bit more than a chance. He doesn't look too comfortable. He's actually lying on top of the carcass. He did make a bit of a fool out of himself, nearly dropping it out of the tree earlier. There was absolute panic in his eyes as he managed to just grip it before it plummeted to the ground. And quite funny, there was absolute panic and not a hyena in sight. Normally, that type of panic is incited by the other apex predator, a lion or a hyena underneath. Now he is motoring through this carcass, so I think he'll probably be here tomorrow morning, but by tomorrow evening I think this will be done. Come on, time to come down the tree. It's not very comfortable sleeping up there. You can see that heavy panting. Even though the temperature has dropped quite a few degrees already, still with that meat full of belly, the digestive process causes heat, and the big cats, or cats in general, are not very good at dispelling heat. They're unable to sweat like us or horses, and their panting is not as effective as that of the dog. So they do have to pant. So basically what's happening when they're panting, all the really warm blood is going into the vessels in their mouth and on their tongue, and they're drawing the cool air over that, and then they're sending the cooler blood back through the rest of their body. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that wonderful sky. James is wondering, why don't lions climb trees like the leopards? Well, James, they're a bit too heavy. Although this tree, I think if the Nkuhuma ladies were here, this is a tree they might be able to get up and steal that kill. It's, as I said, it's not an ideal tree to place a kill. So a lion could climb this tree. They do climb trees, they're just not as good as it is leopards, and a lot of that is because they are too heavy. Okay, we're going to give you 1 more minute before we reposition. Come down the tree now. I demand it of you, you little nonsense. Of course, he doesn't have to listen to me. And for those of you who might have been new or not quite sure what's going on, we are sitting in the middle of the African bush, taking you on a live African safari. So you are seeing a male leopard sitting in the tree at the exact same time as me. And you could be sitting in Honduras or Mumbai or Beijing and I am in South Africa in the Sabi Sands Private Game Reserve. And if you want to ask me any questions about the wonderful wildlife we get here, you can do that as well. Being live, it enables us to be interactive, so send me questions using the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or send me an email to questions@wildearth.tv. Van Barrage, Marman. So, James Duncan says his favourite sighting of Sindile was the first time we saw him when he came back from quarantine, and James and I were both there and incredibly excited. And that we were. Oh, there we go. Are you going to sleep in the tree on top of your impala? Are you going to make me move? He is going to make me move. Okay, well, sometimes you get it wrong. I want to stay on this side in case he does come down so I can move into a good position when he moves. Now, we are hoping as that sun dips lower and lower that he does stay in the tree and we can set up a leopard silhouette shot for you guys. But while we maneuver around, let's go back to Steph and see what he's been up to. What we've been waiting for. And as the sun sinks lower and lower, it's going to get more spectacular, and hopefully he turns his head to look at us. Oh, he nearly did there. And hasn't this been fabulous? We are spending as much time as we can with this incredible male leopard because we don't know where he might be. Tomorrow, he might disappear and go on his wandering, so it could be many a moon before we see him again. Although I think we might definitely see him unless he gets robbed by another leopard on the sunrise safari tomorrow. And I think by midday tomorrow he might be finished with his young male impala. What do you think, Dave? Should we try and move a bit further away to get a different angle? Jazz in North Carolina would like to know, do leopards sometimes forget where they put their kills in a tree, like a dog forgets where it buries its bone? Well, I've never seen a leopard forget. I've seen a leopard arrive to a kill that's been stolen by something and then look a bit confused, but I don't think they forget. So let's change up that angle, see if we can get a different sunset silhouette of young Sindile. Let's get that sun in the right spot. How's that looking for you, Dave? Perfect, that's the one. There we go. And so get ready on 3, 2, 1 screenshot away. I'm going to do the same. Although, I'm going to have to change my camera lens. The wide lens. The big lens, not the lens for this job. Isn't that just a magnificent sight? Dave waiting patiently for me to change my lens. We're having a competition. Who's framing? No, I'm only teasing. Oh dear, I seem to have filled my memory card to the brim. No fear. I have more. Dave's winning because he's... Oh, there we go. He's turned his head. There we go. Wasn't that perfect? As he turned his head, I hope you guys got it. I didn't. I think this is going to get more and more spectacular. It could even be nicer once that sun has actually set. And you're going to have that deep red on the horizon. Isn't this just a nice moment to sit quietly and reflect? I don't think we need much talking for a scene like this. Absolutely magic. Debbie in Vancouver, I tend to agree with you. He doesn't look that comfortable. Mike, you'll be first standing by. So, isn't that just exquisite? So if he does, we'll be back in a flash to try and get a standing silhouette. But until then, Steph has got some cute baby pachyderms.